The best part about pants is that they have pockets. That and they protect your bum from getting stung by angry bees. I like that, but mostly I like the pockets. I can keep so much stuff in them. Check it out, I've got candy over here. In here I have my growed up wallet full of all these plastic cards that let me get stuff for free, except that my mom yells at me at the end of every month. Over here I have my glasses, which are my emergency glasses in case I ever lose my glasses and I need to see to find my glasses. Over here I have a sandwich in case I get hungry for a sandwich. What do we got here? More candy. A cell phone that I use to watch Retro Game Corpse on YouTube to steal his video ideas. This is my key to my house, so that if I leave my house and my mom isn't home, I can still get back inside to play video games instead of waiting for her on the lawn and risk getting stung by angry bees. But as impressed as you currently are by all these amazing things that I have in my pockets, you're probably wondering, TechDweeb, what retro handheld do you have in your pocket? And, well, don't you think that's kind of private? You think I'm just gonna whip that out right here on YouTube? But seriously, it's the RG28XX. That's the video. This thing. Let's review it. If you're interested in micro handhelds, you have come to the right place. Lots of reviewers aren't big on micro handhelds, but I absolutely love micro handhelds. My favorite handheld of all time is the Miyoo Mini, the non-plus Miyoo Mini. And that's a micro handheld. Actually, it's the same size as the RG28XX. Oh man, am I really gonna have to say RG28XX 100 times in this video? Let's come up with a fun name. Hang on. Okay, so if the RG35XX-H is the Zazzbitty, as we've established already, I'm officially calling the RG35XX Plus the Bizazzle. You know, because they're kind of like the same but opposites. Zazzbitty and Bizazzle. And now the RG28XX is kind of the mini version of the Zazzbitty, so it's going to be the Zazzbitty. A little bitty Zazzbitty. That should clear up the confusion. So, where was I? Oh yeah, the Miyoo Mini is actually the same size as the Zazzbitty. It's just kind of a different configuration, see? If you like the idea of a micro handheld but want some of the comfort of a bigger device, this one is sort of the middle ground. It's a bit more comfortable because it's horizontal, but it's mini still. I've been daily driving this for the past few days, carrying it around and playing with it all over the place willy-nilly, and I've really enjoyed having it in my pocket and whipping it out in public places. It only weighs 18 grams more than the Miyoo Mini, so I'm happy to say that this thing is great to carry around with you in your pocket. This Zazzbitty was sent to me by the good folks over at LITNXT. They've got this in stock and they have good prices, so buy this from them if you want one. There's a link in the doodad below. Here's the box. Inside we get the Zazzbitty that I totally didn't just shove in the box to record this unboxing. Under here is a word paper with all sorts of useful tips, probably. And in here is a USB-C cable and a secret folded up note that tells you all the important stuff that you need to know in life. The Zazzbitty has a little D-pad over here, a 2.8-inch 640 by 480 screen here, face buttons here, start and select down there, and a single front-facing mono speaker. On top, we have bumpers and triggers and a USB-C hole for charging and OTG connection, a power indicator, a menu button, and a mini HDMI hole. On the left side, there is a volume rocker. On the right side, we have a power and reset buttons. And underneath, we have a headphone hole and a micro SD card hole and a second micro SD card hole. Nothing around back. The buttons are great. Lots of people complained that these were too small, and when I first got this in my hands, I was like, yeah, what the heck, why are they so small? But the weird thing is, I've been using this for like 2 days now, and I've come to love these buttons. I don't know why. On paper, they're a little small, and they're just standard buttons, but I actually love the smaller size and layout of them now, and they feel great. Hey, I'm just as confused as you are. Actually, maybe not. You're pretty confused. I can tell by the look on your face. But you just gotta trust me, these buttons are not too small. There's a little bit of a learning curve to get used to them, but you will, and you'll love them. The D-pad is great too. Again, yeah, it's a little small, but so is your brain, and you use that okay once you got used to it, so you will not have a problem with this D-pad. It's the same size D-pad as the Game Boy Advance SP, and everyone loves that D-pad, so I think you're gonna be fine here. There's no issues with the inputs either. Easy to hit your diagonals when you want to. No false diagonals. I can play fighting games on this D-pad, which is a pleasant surprise for me. One little gripe that I have is with the shoulder and bumper buttons. I think that they're a little small. And these actually are too small, in my opinion. They work, but they could have been a little bit bigger to fill out more of the top of the device. And let's do the rattle test. Oh yeah, there we go. It's got a bit of a rattle. Not a ton, but a bit. So if you like having lots of rattle when you shake it around like I do, this one probably won't replace your actual rattle. And as you can see, there is no analog stick. This means that some of the systems that this thing can play, like Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and PSP, will not have all the controls that you need to play them properly. That's not why I like this thing. I don't plan on playing lots of freaking Dreamcast on here, but you can play lots of games that lend themselves to the specific control layout that we have here. The screen is another standout feature. It's an awesome little screen. Notice I said two important words there. Awesome and little. If you have good eyesight, you'll see how awesome it looks because at 2.8 inches, 640 by 480 is super high pixel density. So the images look crisp and clear, and we get great pixel scaling on most retro systems. But if you don't have good eyesight, a 2.8 inch screen is on the smaller side, so you might not be able to read text in role-playing games, for instance. I personally have no issue at all. I'm nearsighted, and I've been using the original Miu Mini for ages, and I have no issues with those. But my mom, for instance, is farsighted, and she needs her reading glasses to see this thing, to see the nice messages that I make for her to show her on my retro handhelds to make her happy. The screen is pretty bright. It's about as bright as most of the screens on these things, which is to say that you'll be able to use it outside, but maybe not in direct sunlight. Here's a photo that I took out in nature on an overcast day while mosquitoes stole my blood. I'm playing some Arcana on Super Nintendo, by the way. The sound is okay. The actual volume and sound of the sound is good, but I hate when they do the one single mono speaker right where your thumb can do that annoying thing where it gets in the way of your sound. I get why they do it, it's because they're doing the Game Boy thing, but come on, if your thumb covers the speaker, it's a dumb place to put the speaker. Okay, can we just stop this? Overall, the sound quality is fine, and somebody asked me to start mentioning this. There is zero ambient static noise when you have headphones plugged in. Clean headphone audio here. The system that comes on here is Amberlick's thing. Their system, whatever you call it. All these new Amberlick things, they have the same processor and the same RAM, and they all have the same operating system. I was pretty down on it at first. I didn't like it very much, but honestly, it's improved a lot, and now it's actually good. It doesn't have a ton of quality of life features, and it still doesn't look all that fancy, but it works, and it doesn't get in your way. And you have the options that you need to tweak stuff, so I'm gonna give them a pass here. You can launch your games, you can open up the RetroArch settings to change stuff, and you can set your own hotkeys. Everything works about as you'd like. I took the step of playing around with some custom firmwares. I am in love with Newly, which is the new version of Koriki or Batocera Lite that I showed off in this video. Oh, it's so dang good. This is what I'm personally using on the Zazzbitty, but I'm not going to be using this in any of the gameplay footage or anything because I want to be accurate to how this thing performs out of the box, like if you got this. I'm going to say right now that I don't think you should buy this thing if you want to play a bunch of the higher end systems. I couldn't get any Saturn games to work well. It didn't come with any Saturn games preloaded, and that's probably why. Dreamcast works better than Saturn, surprisingly, but a ton of Dreamcast games required both D-pad and analog sticks, and some required one or the other, so you'll end up rebinding the controls to get them to work. Lots of games do work fine, some work okay, and you can use frame skip, but lots aren't playable, either because of the performance or the controls. And basically the same story for PSP, so easy games will work, but hard games won't, and some games will have control problems. And Nintendo 64 is good if you're okay with using Parallel 64 and the Rice driver, but that's not very accurate, and you'll get some graphical glitches in some games, and even if you can get them working, you won't get the C buttons or the thumbstick, so lots of games won't won't be enjoyable. To be fair, there are Dreamcast and Nintendo 64 and PSP games that do work fine and are enjoyable. But I just don't think you should buy a Zazzbitty specifically to play those games. The Zazzbizzle is a better choice for those because it has the dual thumbsticks, which takes care of the controls. However, none of that matters for me because I have zero interest in playing Dreamcast on a 2.8-inch screen. I love this thing for the retro stuff. You can play anything up to and including PS1 with zero issues. The battery is really good. I didn't do any extensive testing and measuring the time or anything. Check out a channel like Retro Tech Dad if you want those kind of numbers. He's good at that stuff. But my subjective experience is that it's totally an all-day device. You can pause your game, put it to sleep, resume your game later, play for an hour, back to sleep, and still have some juice left for some bedtime gaming. That's impressive for a device this small. I'm just in love with playing retro games on here. I've been playing everything. Atari, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx-16, Sega Genesis, and PS1. I'll dip my toes into some Dreamcast or Nintendo 64 on occasion, but honestly, I'm a-okay with sticking to the retro stuff because that's what feels fun to me on a pocket-sized device like this. I have this thing happen, and maybe you have this thing happen to you, when you get a new device and it really clicks with you. Suddenly, all these old games that you've played a million times feel fresh and new. That's what this thing is doing for me. That's why I can't put it down. It's living in my pocket and I keep reaching for it throughout the day. Which should tell you a lot. It should tell you that I'm a nerd and addicted to retro games, but it should also tell you that this thing is a special thing, at least for dweebs like me. I do not ever leave the house without a handheld. I have this pathetic thing where I need a comfort object, some sort of toy that I know I can turn to that'll make me happy. I've always been this way, even as a little dweeb. I always need a familiar toy with me at all times. Earlier today, I had to leave the house because my mom's boyfriend came over and they needed to do their taxes and they told me to leave. So I went to the park and I sat in the shade and pulled out my Zazzbitty and started Arcana on the Super Nintendo. And I had the freaking time of my life. This thing is tiny, the software is a little janky, it doesn't play the high-end stuff, but for me, the tininess is a blessing, not a curse. And the stuff it does play well is exactly the kinds of stuff that I want to play on a device like this. I can't guarantee that you'll love it. It'll depend on how the ergonomics feel and whether or not the screen is big enough for you, but I'm surprised at how much I love it. I gotta follow my heart, and my heart right now is telling me to stop working on a YouTube video and go play some more Super Nintendo on the Zazzbitty. So I'll round this out by saying that if you want a Zazzbitty of your own, you should get one from LITNXT, linked in the description below. And if you do get one, you should carry it around and play lots of retro games. And if you do that, I hope that you love it as much as I do. And at the very least, I hope you subscribe for more of my nonsense because I make lots of videos on tech and retro games, and I'm pretty sure you'd like them. Speaking of which, there is a playlist linked in the pinned comment if you want to binge my videos. That's always fun. But that's it from me for today. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.